Hello, this is Alan Crane, and this is my recent Kotlin project. It's a cookbook simulation, so the program acts as a organizer for cookbooks and just organizes cooking recipes. So it's pretty simple to compile. To compile, you can just put a command like this that tells you to compile Kotlin files. This tells it which ones. In this case, this asterisk means to compile everything in this directory. So like here's everything I've got in the directory. Anything's Kotlin type, and then of course this part is the name of whatever your .jar program will be. And so you can compile it. Of course mine's already compiled, but we'll go through the motions here. And then now you just tell it, okay, in Java you want to run the same output jar. So whatever this is and this is doesn't really matter for you as long as they're the same and as long as you know what the name of the file is. Run it, pretty simple. Hello, welcome to my program. So you see, you can display a bunch of recipes. You can pick one in particular. Oh, oops, I forgot. That's not how you do that. I'm putting that in as an optional feature eventually, but it's not there yet. But I can put in the actual name. And now it pulls up the recipe. In this case, I don't actually have the full recipe in there. I just have, for test purposes, these things. And then we can add to the list. And we can say cookies. And we can say cookies cook for like 8 minutes. And we can say they have flour. And let's say we're measuring that flour in cups. And let's say we're using 2 cups. Now we can put in another ingredient. And let's see, what else cookies have? They have eggs. And there's not really unit measurement for eggs, so we'll just say unit. And then let's say the cookie recipe calls for 2 eggs. Then we can put another ingredient, or that shows you the idea. So we'll just stop there. We'll say we're done. Now ask for instructions. So you could say mix ingredients, bake at let's say 350 degrees for 8 minutes, and that's good enough. We'll just call that a recipe. Now if we were to look and say we want to see our cookies, alright, here we are, instructions for our cookies. Cook time 8, and you can see I got some little syntax and grammar things I need to put in there. Like it should be saying minutes. I can update that later, but the core of it works right now, so it's fine. Here's our ingredients. We got our instructions, and it's all there. We can rearrange everything in the cookbook so that we can put it in all in alphabetical order. Right now it says pizza, banana, bread, dinner, and cookies. So if we want alphabetical order, now if we load it up, they're all in alphabetical order. Now we want to sort them by cook time, and now see, banana bread cooks for like an hour, dinner rolls like 10 minutes, pizza is also I think in there for 10 minutes, so these two are the same anyways, so it just kept these two in the alphabetical order they were already in. And then cookies we put in as 8 minutes, so that goes last, so yeah, that's working alright. We can also do custom swap where we just pick an individual thing in there. Let's say we want those cookies to be at the very top. Oh, right. In this one we want to just put in the number, as it says here, the recipe number. So 4. Alright, now we want to give it new index number, so let's say we want it at the top. Let's say that's too easy. Let's put it in the second thing in the list. So it's now the second thing in the list, and then items 2 and 3 will shift down. Now if we do our display thing, you can see we got banana bread, cookies has been moved to number 2 like we asked it to, dinner rolls and pizza. So yeah, just nice little pictures make it a little easier to organize. And we can obviously delete things from the list. And let's say we want to delete those cookies. Alright, cookies are deleted successfully. Now we can, if we were to try to delete something that isn't in there, we could say, let's say we want to delete hamburgers. Now we get a message saying there is no hamburger recipe, so we couldn't delete it. So nice little safety feature in there. Yeah, fixtures 5 and 6 are still in development. Hopefully at one point I want to make it so that you can have all these recipes as saved to a file. Then you have each person who's using the program, you have their own individual cookbook, or even maybe multiple if they so choose. And it's not there yet. So that will make it useful once it's done, but it's not there. So you can see I can put in 5, and it just defaults back to the menu when you're done. It's just not working. Not yet. But yeah, that's my program. Now I'll take a look at how it works in Kotlin. So here it is. You can see here's my Kotlin main file. There's no punctuation really. You just have a function. We can call other functions. We were to look at my menu function, which is a little large, but you can see I can declare here's a variable. We can explicitly class it as a Boolean, though Kotlin will figure it out if you don't explicitly cast it. Like here, we've implicitly cast it. Like I haven't actually said what type it is, but it can figure out from here this is an object of recipe book. And so it figured it out on its own. Let's see, where's something else? So here, those 3 recipes that were already in the cookbook at the beginning, like they're just there for test purposes. So eventually, this function here, I can just get rid of, and there won't be a need for any test recipes. But yeah, here's my little do while loop, all the menu instructions that you, oops, there we go, okay. And you can see these are still calling out as my to-do list. Like these 2 lines are just not, they're not ready yet. So you can see here I got my try and my catch. And just check out for faulty input. That way we just don't, a user doesn't like enter a string and then crash the program. I got try catches like that also throughout the program. Here we got some nice pattern matching. This isn't really the most beautiful example of pattern matching because it's just 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, then anything else. But we got pattern matching there, and that's pretty nice to have its capability for Kotlin. Let's see. What else have we got that's cool? So that's my, if we look at the inside here, so you can see all my functions here. They're just there to handle, in the main function, the functions are just there to handle user input. And then anything, all the actual calculations and data storing are held by the classes. But as you can see, we pass the recipe object. Probably not the most efficient way of doing this, but it's the best way I can figure out. But yeah, to display the recipe names of everything in the list. You can display a specific name, and everything else in here is just to handle user input. You see this add function. It looks a little complicated, but basically everything from here down to here, this is all just gathering user input and making sure it's valid. And then once it's all gathered up, then we can just pass it to the object as a constructor and pass all these parameters, and then the recipe book will handle it from there and construct a new recipe object. And we get a little feedback saying it was done successfully. I guess in this case, I'm just assuming it's done successfully, so I could probably put some checks there later. You can see I got my delete recipe. Again, we're just checking for user feedback or user input all the way up to here. And then we pass the actual instructions to the class. And then we get feedback to the user because this is a Boolean function, as we'll look at later. That will return true if it's deleted successfully. It will return false if it detected problems on its end. Okay, so here's my reorganize again. Just gather user input all the way down to what here. Here's all gathering user input, and then it decides which function within the class to pull. Here, more inputs required, so we have our own little custom swap where we gather more user input all the way up to, where is it? Right down to here. Yeah, here. Here's the actual instruction to swap the recipe. Again, this is a Boolean function as well, and it will return it false if there was some kind of problem on its end, and then we can give that information to the user and say, hey, this didn't work. You can see my load recipe and my save recipe functions have not been started yet, but they're on my to-do list. Here's my test generation that I will hopefully get rid of at some point soon. Here's my recipe book class. They just have just a couple simple things here in the recipe book. It's just a string file name, which will be useful later when we're saving things to a file. And then, of course, our empty mutable list. So that's the other thing, is that everything in Kotlin all the data can be either a variable or it can be a value. And variables are mutable, which is why this had to be a mutable list. But sometimes you find things that are values. This will next time I see one here, I'll point it out. So you can see, let's display the recipe names using a for loop in this case. More for loops. Let's see if we can find a value in here. I think we'll find some values deeper in. But yeah, this one hasn't been implemented yet, so I haven't really tested it yet, but hopefully that will eventually be the alternate way of displaying recipes by just inputting a number instead of the name of the recipe. Yeah, add the recipes, delete the recipes. All the actual adding, deleting is being done here. Everything we saw earlier in the main file, that was just getting user input and passing instructions here to the recipe book. So you can see here again, here we run some checks to make sure that this delete recipe instructions were actually valid. And if it is valid, when we return that it was successful, here we actually remove the recipe, here we return successful. And if it wasn't valid, then, oh, okay, we say, hey, we went through all this, and we couldn't find a match, it didn't work, so this was false. This call of this method failed. Let's see, other things. Let's see, I still haven't found a value for you, but let's see, I got other things going on here. We have a simple getter method. The it thing was interesting, learning how to use it to just reference itself. Let's see, maybe, oh wait, here we have a value. Okay, so here's my recipe object. It organizes this what the recipe itself should look like, what its information had. And the name of the recipe itself should not be changing, so we just have it as an actual value. Now, obviously, someone can delete the recipe and then add a new one in its place in that case. But yeah, recipes, once they've been created, they really don't need to be edited, so at least I have not seen fit to do that. So these are all values. That means they're immutable. And they do not change. They do not change. So pretty simple. Just display all the relevant information in the way that that's all handled by the recipe. And the ingredient class is even simpler. Got some values. And it's pretty simple. Not expected to change much. Doesn't need to reveal a lot of information outside of just the specific in context. So yeah, that's my program. That's Kotlin for you. It's pretty easy. I had some issues learning how to compile things, like those commands I had to do at the very beginning. Like that took a bit of time to figure out why it wasn't working, why you couldn't just run a single program and compile it. And yeah, I had to make my .jar program had to include all of these. So learning that specific command so that it could include them all, that cost me a fair bit of headache. But everything else about Kotlin was pretty easy to learn. It was pretty fun. I enjoyed working on this project, and I'm looking forward to finishing it up and adding new features to it so that it can be more useful in my own day-to-day life. But yeah, it's my Kotlin program, and yeah, thank you for watching.